I obviously didn't graduate with a degree, in business or marketing. A lot of it was just learned experiences. So through my internships, on-the-job learning, and just reaching out to other, colleagues that have been in the marketing and, advertising world for a lot longer than I have.
Hey Islanders, and welcome to episode 145 of the Camano Voice. Today I speak with the Economic Development and Marketing Manager for the City of Stanwood. Please welcome Sarah Cho. Hi, I'm Brandon Erickson, and you're listening to the Camano Voice podcast, where I interview local business owners, comedians, singers, and more. I dive into their backstory to find out how they got where they are, what are some of the tips for you to do the same, and find out where they are going. Tune in every week as I interview more of the people you see every day. Hey Islanders, and welcome to another episode of the Camano Voice, where we release a new episode every Tuesday. How's your guys' week going? Last week's episode, I said I was going to try and do 3 posts of some sort per week, on the Camano Voice Instagram. So if you are not following me there, follow me at the Camano Voice on Instagram. And I'm going to be posting random things. And for those who saw my first post of this, will agree that or realize how random I meant. I did a quick video of just me, and then I flipped it over, and it was of our mealworms, which are have turned into beetles at this point. And just all of them writhing and eating styrofoam because they eat styrofoam, which is why we have them. So yeah, I got lots of comments from that. Sorry if I grossed you out because they grossed me out. And so I wanted to share that with you. You're welcome. Anyways, I've got other video ideas coming up. I'm not good at them. So don't expect, the high quality TikTok quality that you're so used to on social medias. But hopefully I will get better at them, much like I have with this podcast. Again, follow me on the Insta, and I would really appreciate that. All right, here we go. Today I am interviewing Sarah Cho, who, as I mentioned in the opening, is the Economic Development and Marketing Manager for the City of Stanwood. That is a mouthful. So she has been with the city a little less than a year, coming up on a year now. And she is really excited about the changes and stuff that they're trying to do to Stanwood to try and improve it. For those of you who live in this area have known, Stanwood, like all cities and stuff, have gone through ups and downs. And I think the new team that is in the leadership positions within the government, as well as with the Stanwood Chamber, I think all of them are really passionate and excited to see Stanwood grow and to really become a thriving business community and a fun place to go. And so she is part of that, of really leading that charge. And she also has taken Discover Stanwood Camano under her wing, so that's kind of her project as well. So all of those different things that she's kind of working on in the background to try and make the city stand out. And so I got to talk with her about some of the things and what are the changes that are coming and what's the current state of Stanwood and what are you kind of hoping that it turns into. So we get into all of that and more. Plus you get to hear her background to how she got here. And so without further ado, here's my conversation with Sarah Cho. Hey Islanders, and welcome to another episode of the Camano Voice. Today I'm here with the Economic Development and Marketing Manager for the City of Stanwood. Welcome to the podcast, Sarah Cho.
Hi, thank you for having me, Brandon.
Yeah, it's great to have you on the show. So before we get started, tell us a little bit about Sarah.
Yeah, so I'm relatively new to the Stanwood Camano community. I moved to Camano late last year. I obviously am also new with the city as well. I am the Economic Development and Marketing Manager, and I started working with the city last year. Prior to me coming to Stanwood and Camano, I was actually living and working in Federal Way, Washington.
Okay.
So I was there probably for the last 10 plus years of my life. So that was kind of home for me.
Okay.
Didn't grow up there. I did grow up actually in the Portland area.
Okay.
But I identify, King County, Pierce County as kind of my home or where I grew up. So that's where I was prior to me coming here to Stanwood.
Okay.
Yep.
Very cool. So what was it like growing up in Portland for you?
So I moved actually to Washington relatively young. I was still in elementary school, but as far as my experiences in Portland, I would say they were very similar to my life in Federal Way or Washington in general. I didn't see, any big changes. But like I said, even though I'm from Portland, a lot of my family is in Washington now.
Okay.
So I kind of have my roots more in Washington than I do in Portland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So then growing up and stuff, what were kind of your things that you wanted to do in life? What were things that interested you?
Yeah, so as a kid, I did a lot of stuff in school. So I did a lot of like academic-based things. So I was in speech and debate. I did FBLA.
Oh, nice.
I also was very big in music. So I was active in my school choir, my church choir. So I did a lot of music-based activities growing up. So when I was younger, I thought maybe I would either go into maybe something like in the business world, or if I followed something with music. I didn't think I was going to become like a musician or anything, but I really enjoyed doing music as a child growing up. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you mentioned singing? Did you also play certain instruments?
I did. I played clarinet for like a month, and I
Okay.
gave up. And then that's when I pivoted to choir. But then I also did piano, and then I don't know why, but I picked up bass guitar.
Okay.
I tried guitar and I couldn't do it, so I just pivoted to the bass, and I did that for a little bit. I played in church and things like that, but those are the two instruments that I played actively.
Okay,
Yeah.
nice. Do you still play?
Not as much as I'd like to.
Yeah.
It's sitting in my closet somewhere,
Yes.
but I don't want to give it up, so.
Yeah, it's always hard with instruments because it's like it's something that you feel like you can always just pick back up.
Yeah.
But they take up a lot of space, and then you're like, oh, am I going to get back to them? But,
Yeah, yeah.
you're like, I used to be able to do this.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was like, I used to play it like a couple times every week growing up, and now it's just like not even part of my, daily, experience or activities, but I always hope that I'll get back to it one day. Yeah.
Well, and I've played piano, and then I taught myself guitar, but really with guitar, it was just learning chords and stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm able to pick back up on guitar okay, because it's just I re-look up the chords. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah.
The finger strength's not there. But when it comes to piano, like I was playing these pieces, and I look at them now, I'm like, hey, I don't have a clue what I was doing.
Yeah, like,
back
how did
then.
I read this before?
I know.
Yeah.
All cars need gasoline. I'm going through with every note. So very cool. So, okay, so then as you were kind of getting near the end of high school then, what were you kind of looking at? You were kind of had these different choices of where you wanted to go.
Yeah, so I knew I was going to go to school in-state. So I applied to several in-state colleges like UW, Seattle University, I think PLU, SPU. And I didn't know exactly what I was going to do career-wise. I just knew I was going to college, and that was my next step.
Yeah.
So I ended up going to UW, not knowing what I was going to study. Initially, I thought I was going to do the traditional track of like becoming a doctor or becoming a lawyer, kind of like every parent's dream. So I initially was studying to be in environmental science, actually.
Okay.
But quickly I learned that this was not the program for me.
Yeah.
So I pivoted to a similar program. It was environmental studies.
Okay.
Very similar, but just a little bit different focus. And then from that program, I actually took a sustainable urban development course. And there was actually a program at UW called Sustainable Urban Development.
Okay.
So from that one class, I was like, okay, I think this is a program for me. So I actually switched my major again, and ultimately ended up studying Sustainable Urban Development at UW.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. So in that and kind of going through those was how long did that add a lot to your time at UW, or were you able to still finish in that shorter time?
I actually participated in a program in high school called Running Start.
Oh, yeah.
So I didn't do it for the 2 full years. I did it for 1. So I was already 1 year ahead when I entered college.
Okay.
So essentially, if I stayed on track, I could have graduated college in 3 years. But because I changed and I actually added, some certificates and some minor programs, I ended up doing the traditional 4 years.
Okay.
But I think it worked out in the end because I got to take a lot more classes and see what I was interested in.
Yeah.
But for the Running Start program, I recommend that program to anyone that can take advantage of it because
Yeah.
it lets you kind of test and see what you want to do in college if you pursue college while you're still in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had guess like another person going to college at the same time as us, that I was going to college, but she had done the track of doing the full 2 years of Running Start, went straight into her bachelor's, and then so she was graduating with her master's at like 21 or 22.
Yeah,
I was like,
you
wait.
can graduate so young. My younger sister, I think, graduated in 3 or 2 years also.
Okay.
So like, I'm like, you're so young. How are you done with college already?
Yeah.
But it's a great program, and if it works for you, I think it's great. So,
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So I think these are, like, from a high-level view, they all sound somewhat self-explanatory with environmental science to studies and then sustainable urban development. But can you break down a little bit kind of the difference between those three and how they kind of rolled into each other?
Yeah, so I would say for environmental science, at least in my experience, a lot of the students that were in that program, their plans were to either go into like the medical field or more science-based fields.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very heavy in, the chemistry courses, biology courses. You do the whole series.
Yes.
Studies was a little almost similar, except I don't think they made you do the entire science series.
Okay.
So you take the required amounts, but more of the classes were, I want to say, like theoretical based, more talking about the issues with environmental issues.
Yeah.
And then with sustainable urban development, it's applying that perspective of environmental studies and science, but more at an urban level. So how can we focus and address issues that, communities are facing with, developments, with growth? How can we apply it to our community?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So what was it that interested you in that when you took that one class in urban development? What did that trigger?
If I remember correctly, I think it was one of the first classes where I felt like I had enough knowledge to actually be a part of the conversation. So in some of these science classes, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm taking the tests, I'm doing the labs, and, I was going through the motions. But in this sustainable urban development course, we were addressing issues that actually applied to myself, to people in the community. So it felt more tangible and more, I don't know if realistic is a real word, but something I could apply in a real setting. And even then, I didn't know like what that meant as a career, but I knew that I was interested in it at least, and I didn't feel that way necessarily about environmental science and studies.
Yep.
So I felt like I think this is the right direction that I should be heading in.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. So once you graduated then, what was your plan and what kind of happened after that?
Yeah, so when I was in my senior year, I was like, okay, I need to buckle down. I need to get some internships. I need to transition into my career.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, I was still a little wary of, okay, what does this mean as far as what kind of jobs will I be able to apply for? A lot of the people in my program typically went on to becoming planners, people in community development. We have an element of our program that focuses on GIS. So a lot of people go into GIS positions.
And what's GIS?
Geographic Information Systems. So
Okay.
like anything that deals with data and mapping, pretty much someone is doing that back end work with the data.
Okay.
I did a certificate program in that as well. It was very enjoyable and you learn a lot, but I quickly realized I don't want to be looking at a computer every day and working with numbers and data. It's very interesting, and I think once you know what it is, you can see how it's applied in almost every single industry, not just government.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as what I did my senior year, I started applying for internships. I ended up getting an internship, multiple internships, one with United Way of Pierce County.
Okay.
In that position, I did some marketing and communications work for their marketing director. So with that experience, I got a little bit of experience of working for a nonprofit, working in marketing and advertising. I also, at the same time, got an internship for the City of Federal Way for their economic development director. So while I was wrapping up my senior year, I was doing those two internships. With the city, I did a lot of research, admin, participated in community events, put together work orders and things like that. I think that's where I got majority of my experience as far as working in local government.
Yeah.
So I wrapped up that internship as I graduated, and I believe the week after I graduated, I started working for the City of Federal Way. So that's how I transitioned right when I graduated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned your positions in those other 2 internships, because
Yeah.
I can see where your title comes from now.
Yeah.
So, okay, great. So, one of the things when it comes to projects in general, sometimes it's easy to see how things are going to go and move when they're really small and you're starting something new.
Yeah.
Because you get full flexibility in how you want to build it and do whatever. Cities, obviously, are something that are there, have been there for a very long time, and are going to be there well past your timing. So how was that for you stepping into these positions where you feel like you have to try and influence and help the city move forward, but it's something that you're a small kind of blip on that?
Yeah, so for people who've never worked in government or don't actively participate in government, I think it's some people typically get frustrated with how government processes work.
Yeah.
You know, we have a responsibility to our community in everything that we do. So whether it's a project, permitting, we basically have to have an answer for everything back to the community. Why are we doing this? What's our methodology? Did we do our research? So I think in working in local government, it's interesting to see, you may think you have one answer, but then you're like, wait, let me check with 5 other groups, 5 other boards, 5 other organizations.
Yeah.
Let's check with the business community. Most of government is making sure that everyone's opinions are being heard. So it's not just one person making the shots. So even though I might be a small part of, the overall picture,
Yep.
I know that my work is meaningful, even if, my name is not on the project. I know I played an active role in getting that development or that project out there, even as something as simple as, hosting a community event, like movies in the park. It's just an activity for the community to come out and enjoy.
Yeah.
But you see the impact that it has with, businesses, local organizations, the community members. It's just really gratifying and satisfying to see kind of how my small role ultimately played a part in the bigger picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So what was that like getting started with Federal Way? And just because I'm terrible when it comes to geography, population numbers, all that stuff, how big is Federal Way in comparison to, Stanwood or other?
Yeah, so Federal Way is a population of over 100,000.
Okay.
So a lot bigger than Stanwood and Camano. Just a little bit, but and as far as what the community is like, it's funny because my entire world was always in Pierce and King County. I never really went past Seattle.
Okay.
So moving up to Stanwood was a pretty big jump for me.
Yeah.
But I always say, I live right next to Wild Waves theme park. And some people who never drive south of Everett, they're like, what is Wild Waves? And I was like, it's the only theme park in Washington State. But then I realized, I was in such a not small bubble, but in my own little world down south.
Yeah.
But, Federal Way has a lot of great things. I could probably list, if you think of any type of restaurant, they probably have that restaurant.
Yeah.
They have a lot of great features outside of just Wild Waves. They have, the rhododendron gardens. We have a lot of great parks similar to Stanwood, I would say. And there's a very rich and diverse community in Federal Way.
Okay.
And I grew up in the public school systems in Federal Way as well. So I enjoyed my time in Federal Way, and I think there's a lot of development happening in Federal Way as well, with light rail coming in. They have a station there opening up soon. So even when I visit Federal Way now, I'm like, I don't recognize this city anymore. There's so much new stuff happening. So kind of similar to, I think, a lot of the development happening in Stanwood, but at a different scale.
Yeah.
Just a lot of changes happening.
Yeah. So what was your, when you got brought on to, when you got hired by Federal Way, the city, what was your job position there? Yeah,
so I initially started off, I can't remember the exact title, but the City of Federal Way at that time had a fairly new performing arts and event center.
Okay.
So it was a city-owned venue. They opened in I believe 2017 or 2018. So I came on as their kind of marketing person for that venue.
Okay.
And I graduated. So yeah, it was the marketing position, and it. Long story short, a management company came in. I still work for the city, but I was an employee of the management company.
Okay.
So I was the sales and marketing manager at the Performing Arts and Event Center.
Okay.
So that meant, advertising the venue, advertising the shows, the concerts, renting out the venue hall spaces for weddings, meetings, corporate meetings, things like that.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a dual position.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, because from your background, it doesn't sound, I mean, I'm sure you have like little bits of marketing experience and like classes and stuff, but like, where did your bulk of your marketing experience come from, or did you kind of have to learn that on the job?
I obviously didn't graduate with a degree, in business or marketing. A lot of it was just learned experiences. So through my internships, on the job learning, and just reaching out to other, colleagues that have been in the marketing and, advertising world for a lot longer than I have.
Yeah.
Seeing what their methodology were, because I honestly came in, I was like, okay, how do I write a marketing plan? How do I spend marketing dollars? How do I advertise a venue? A lot of it's just asking questions, seeing what other people have done. And it's really a trial and error, I think, type of learning.
Yeah.
Just seeing what works for you, what works for your job. But a lot of it was just learned experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things I find with marketing is sometimes it feels like you're just kind of spraying and praying, and it's kind of like you're shooting into the dark and you hope that you hear something say ow or something,
Yeah.
For you, did you feel like as you kept doing this that you eventually got to this point where you started being able to hone in on what was and wasn't working, or?
I think it depends. I think the most important thing, especially for me in that position, was knowing what the community wanted or wanted to see. It was great that I was able to live and work in the same community. I literally drove like 2 or 3 blocks to get to work. So it was like a 1-minute drive. So I knew where everything was in town. So while, yes, my responsibilities were to advertise the venue even beyond the region, because we were a city-owned venue, we had an obligation to hear what the community wanted, what kind of shows did they want to see, what kind of events did they want to see hosted in the venue.
Yeah.
So a lot of it, not just in marketing, but even in economic development, is just making these relationships and making these connections, hearing what people are wanting, how can we collaborate. So a lot of it is just managing relationships. And people think there's a science behind it, but it's really just sitting down with people, getting a cup of coffee, having a meeting. And that typically is all that it takes to kind of facilitate these conversations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So how long were you working with the City of Federal Way then?
So I was with the City of Federal Way because I came here last year, so it was about 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
And I was in that position for about 2 to 3 years, but I also still continued to work directly with the City of Federal Way with their economic development director under the mayor's office. So I helped assist in some of their projects as well. And then from that position at the Performing Arts and Event Center, I eventually came up to Stanwood. I actually found the job listing because my previous director emailed it to me and said, hey, I think you'd be a great fit for this job. And I was like, okay. And I look at the email, I was like, where is Stanwood? Let me do a quick Google search. And I was like, okay, I've never been here. Let's go drive up and see what it's like. But that's how I ultimately ended up hearing about this position.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So what kind of intrigued you about the moving to this Camano Stanwood area and then this position versus what you were already doing?
Yeah, so when I finished school, I never thought I was going to be in marketing. Obviously, I didn't study that, so I was like, but not that I didn't enjoy my time at the Performing Arts and Event Center, but the projects that I worked on with the City of Federal Way kind of more aligned with what I thought I would be doing out of school.
Okay.
And even after I graduated, I never thought I was going to be in economic development. The only reason I am in the position that I am in now is because of my internship with the City of Federal Way.
Okay.
The director there really opened up my eyes on, okay, what is economic development? What kind of hats do you wear? You basically play 10 different roles at the same time.
Yep.
And when I saw the position for Stanwood open, Obviously, Stanwood is a much smaller community. So I was like, okay, to start my career in economic development, what kind of community can I envision myself launching my career?
Yeah.
And I really appreciated the fact that Stanwood was taking the initiative to hire somebody in this position. You know, we're a smaller rural community,
Yeah.
but they were forward thinking to say, okay, let's have someone come in to do economic development and marketing. So I was like, okay, I think I like the direction where their plans are going. I did some research on the city website on the current projects they were working on, and I really liked what Stanwood was doing.
Yeah.
So that's why I was like, okay, I think I like this community. I'm going to apply for the job, and here I am. So
Okay.
yeah.
Very cool. So, for economic development, again, sounds pretty self-explanatory. But what
Yeah.
does that mean in, translating it from like what you would imagine it would be to what is it really?
Yeah, so I think that was one of my questions in my interview. Like, what does economic development mean to you? And in all reality, my honest, genuine answer is it really depends on who you ask. Whether you're asking a business owner, whether you're asking a government employee, whether you're asking, a mom living in the community, everybody can have different answers.
Yeah.
And what I like to say is, depending on how you're looking at economic development, from a business perspective is, how can we foster a healthy business community?
Yeah.
How can we retain businesses? How can we recruit businesses? Maybe from a nonprofit perspective is how can we serve our community? How can we serve the underprivileged?
Yeah.
So in the end, it's really essentially what are your goals and how can we reach those goals as a community or as an economy? That's kind of the way I like to look at it. It's
Yeah.
not just numbers and not just how much money can we bring into the community, which is great, but it's really making sure that the goals are being met by whoever you're asking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So, then, did Stanwood have this position filled prior to you being here?
As far as my understanding, I don't believe so. I believe this was a new position. There may have been maybe different positions under a different name, but as far as my title goes, brand new position.
Okay.
So this was a transition for the city as well.
Okay.
Figuring out how does this position fit in with the existing departments, with the existing staff. So it was definitely kind of a learning period this last year. But I think we've gotten to a really good place where people kind of understand now more of what I do
Yep.
and how I can play a supporting role or assist in their projects as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, so talk us through that. So you got started, you got the job. What did day one and kind of that first start look like for you?
Yeah, so I got the job last year of 2021. I started in May, so it's been about a year now. I was still living in Federal Way at that point.
Oh, wow, okay.
So the funny thing was I thought I was going to be able to find, a temporary apartment, maybe for a few months while we're house hunting. We looked at all the apartments in the area, even as far as Arlington and Marysville, and they were all booked up.
Yeah.
Which was so crazy to me. And even the ones that did have availability opening up, I had my dogs too, so we had to find somewhere that would take our dogs.
Yep.
So it was very hard to find a place. So eventually we ended up finding an Airbnb just a little bit south of Stanwood.
Okay.
So I was actually commuting from the Airbnb up until the point we found our house on Camano.
Okay.
So I was doing that for a few months, but we eventually found our house on Camano at the end of the summer.
Okay.
And that's when me and my husband fully packed up everything in Federal Way and transitioned up here to Stanwood and Camano.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what does the first year of working within the city look like for you?
So first year, there was a lot of, I want to say, growing pains and learning pains. Since I've been here, I've been through 2 city administrators. So things have
Wow.
shifted.
Yeah.
I've had different supervisors. I've been in different departments. But I think we've gotten to the point. So now I report to our community development director, Patricia Love.
Okay.
And we have our planners, our senior planners. We have our building officials. We have our associate planners. So the first year was a lot of learning. Just what does Stanwood do? What are their processes and procedures? How can I bring my I don't want like my knowledge and my experience, and how can I apply it in the way that they want to use my experience?
Yeah.
So a lot of it was just learning. And my favorite thing to say in the office was, we have some city employees that have been working for the city, for 10 plus years. So they know what's going on.
Yeah.
I'm not going to come in acting like I know what's going on with the city because, I'm new, I'm still learning.
Yeah.
So my favorite thing was just going to some of the, more experienced city employees and asking, hey, how did we do this in the past? How was this done? Just learning about the past, I think, really helped me move forward with, whether it was starting new initiatives, starting new processes. A lot of it was just learning for the first year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So what were some of the first projects that you started working on?
So from day one, I don't know if I would call them projects, but part of my, job responsibilities is managing our business licenses. So it's kind of boring. You just manage a business directory. But a lot of it was cleaning up the data we had. How can we use the data to look at, okay, what are we lacking in Stanwood? What should we be recruiting? How should we be helping our current businesses? So that's an ongoing project with our business directory. Another more fun side of my job, I would say, is our special events. So I process all of our special event permits. So
Okay.
if you want to shut down the road, if you want to rent a park and do a community event, I receive all those applications. And one of the first things I remember starting was, and I started during COVID, so obviously there were not that many events last
Right.
year. But when I looked at the calendar years in the past, there were tons of events in Stanwood and Camano.
Yeah.
And I was so confused because I was like, why is a community of 7,000 on Stanwood and, 15,000 on Camano? There was like 20, 30 events every year, and they're very well attended. They're
Yeah.
not just small community events.
Right.
So that was really interesting to see that, the community and the region see Stanwood and Camano as a destination to come out for these special events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, the city of Stanwood has gone through a lot of transitions over the years. And when we moved here to Camano Island in '95.
Okay.
And at that point, when you drove through Stanwood, Camano had no lights on it. When you drove through Stanwood at that time, basically lights were out by like 7 p.m. or so.
Yeah.
Like the city was completely dark. There
Yeah.
was nothing open. So to see where it is now, Stanwood has gone through a lot of transitions, obviously, but it's gone from this like kind of this like secondary town of like, having had Twin City Foods there and that kind of being the massive piece of it, and to becoming a little bit more of a kind of a cute downtown, like a small rural town, but with enough stuff in it that you can get most of your things there and stay pretty local. And
and even I'm coming from Federal Way. Federal Way has, you can pretty much name like any big box store. You really don't have to leave Federal Way to get most of your services. Obviously we don't have that many big box stores in Stanwood. We have our grocery stores and things like that, but for the most part, even like now that I live here, if I have to leave I-5, I'm like, that's going to be a trip. So I try to get as many of my services or things that I need met either on Camano or on Stanwood. And even as I moved here, when I bring my friends and family to check out, they're like, what's in Stanwood? What's in Camano? They're kind of taken back and they're like, wow, there's actually a lot of great restaurants and a lot of great shops. Camano has great parks. So they realize there's this area that they've never been to up north. And they're like, okay, so now you have a house here, so we're going to come out every summer.
Go crabbing.
Go crabbing, go to the beaches. So I think Stanwood and Camano, they have such a strong identity especially with the local businesses. And yes, you still need to obviously go out of town if you need to go to the Costco's and the Walmarts. But for the most part, and most people I've spoken with, they try to stay in town. And it looks like most of the stuff that they need are here. And obviously, there's always Amazon and, the online deliveries, which I've been taking advantage of. So, but for the most part, I try to stay within the community if I can.
So when you mentioned that looking at kind of the business directory of all the businesses in town and seeing businesses that are or services or things like that that aren't quite being met.
Yeah.
Do you do you guys go and look at other, like, say, Mount Vernon and things like that?
Yeah.
Do you look at, like, small businesses that are doing that, or do you
Yeah.
look at, like, the, not Walmart, but, like, you know,
Yeah.
the bigger businesses?
Well, I think it's a combination. Obviously, with any jurisdiction or any community, whatever land you have available will dictate what kind of businesses will be able to come into your community.
Yeah.
And also with zoning. So, for instance, I was just talking about downtown on the Brick Road. I think almost all the stores there are filled. And as soon as a business leaves, another one comes in.
Yeah.
So what I like to look at it is we do look at a combination of, okay, what are we maybe lacking in? And is there a way we can encourage a business to bring those services into Stanwood?
Yeah.
Or maybe it's an existing business that we already have, and maybe we can provide resources where they can enhance their services or maybe broaden what they do.
Yeah.
Because I think we already have a great amount of businesses in Stanwood
Yeah.
and Camano itself. And it's not just how can we get the next big business here.
Yeah.
It's how can we support the existing businesses because they're truly the heart of our community.
Yeah.
So I like to look at it more of let's retain our current businesses
Yeah.
and give them the support and help they need versus waiting for another business to come in.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. So over this last year, then, what are some of the projects that you guys have currently in motion that you're looking forward to over this next year?
Yeah, so City's doing a lot of things right now. One of the projects that I'm overseeing is our city beautification project. One element of that project is our downtown revitalization. And we called it the Twin City Mile Project.
Okay.
So for those that may not be familiar with the history of Stanwood, Stanwood used to be two different cities. So there was Stanwood and East Stanwood. That's why we kind of have two different downtown districts. So we have, the downtown strip on 271st, and then we have the downtown strip on the Brick Road.
Yeah.
So we called it the Twin City Mile because from City Hall all the way to the train tracks on 271st, it's almost exactly a mile.
Okay.
So we're focusing on that mile stretch, and that's our downtown core. So within this city beautification project, what are some projects that the downtown community wants to see be implemented or be planned for the future, whether that's beautifying the streets with planters, benches, pocket parks, or maybe it's more bigger projects such as, okay, how are we going to maintain the Brick Road? How are we going to make it event friendly? How are we going to make it ADA friendly? So some of these projects are scoped, for the next year. Some will be 5-year projects, 10-year projects. But right now we have a community survey that we're wrapping up where we're asking the community, okay, what do you want to see in downtown? As a pedestrian, as a driver, what are the elements that you want to see?
Yeah.
So we did 2 meetings so far with our steering committee, which involved business owners, community members, organizations, of what do they see as a downtown resident, what would they like to see, and getting their opinion and coming to a 10% design plan by the end of this fall.
Yep.
And presenting that to City Council.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Now, one of the projects that you mentioned at the chamber meeting that I saw you at was Discover Stanwood Camano.
Yes.
And that has that fallen back under you then?
Yes, so a lot of transitions with that as well. So
Yeah.
Discover Stanwood Camano is operated by the city, so that falls under my umbrella as well. So
Okay.
that's kind of my marketing part of my position. So for those who may not be familiar with Discover Stanwood Camano, it is our tourism initiative through the city. We have an online directory and website where businesses and organizations can go on to share their businesses, they can share their events, and really looking at Stanwood and Camano from a visitor perspective. So like I mentioned, when I first applied for the job, one of the first things I did was drive to Stanwood and Camano to
Yep.
see what it was like. So I did a Google search, what's there to do in town, and Discover Stanwood Camano were one of the, top websites to pop up. And at that point, I obviously knew it was a city website because I looked at the job listing, so I was doing my research, but I was like, wow, this is actually a really great website. If I didn't know anything about Stanwood or Camano, will it tell me where I need to go eat, where I need to go if I wanted to go to a park or just, relax in town? So essentially, we are trying to utilize this tool to promote all of our businesses and all of our tourist-based activities on the website.
Yeah.
And it's really a tool for the businesses to take advantage of to further promote their efforts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. And then a lot of the parks in Stanwood, I know Church Creek has gone through quite a bit of an evolution because
Yeah.
it's had its rough days for sure.
Yeah.
Like I remember as a kid, we would go out there and play on the playground and stuff. And then there was a time period where it wasn't the most popular park to go visit.
Yeah.
But how have you kind of worked on that with the parks in the Stanwood area?
Yeah. So parks doesn't fall under my umbrella, but I work closely with our planners. So the city just approved a transition. So we don't have a parks department.
Okay.
So everything fell under public works essentially.
Okay.
But there was conversations within the community and within the city of, okay, do we have enough capacity to support parks department?
Yeah.
So we do have, I don't want to say it's a full parks department, but we do have an existing parks department. So we have a parks manager or planner, I don't know what the exact title is.
Yeah.
And we do have dedicated city staff
Okay.
that kind of maintain the parks as well.
Yeah.
There are all the other parks as well, such as Hamilton and Ovenel, that are kind of just like, okay, what's going to happen with those properties?
Yeah.
And I think both of those, I can't speak on specifics because I'm not well versed in those projects, but, those are going to be, long-term projects with, what does the community want to see happen at Ovenel or Hamilton?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of great opportunities. I think they're in great locations.
Yeah.
I obviously don't know what Church Creek looked like, 5-10 years ago.
Yeah.
But from my few times I've been there, I've always seen people utilizing the park. I know
Yeah.
they have like the golf court, the disc golf course, the picnic areas, the basketball courts. We have also an avid pickleball group that wants to expand pickleball in
Yeah.
Stanwood and Camano. So I think overall the community is very supportive of the parks.
Yeah.
So I'm just very excited to see the changes that'll happen in both Church Creek, Heritage, and then our future parks in Hamilton and Ovenel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I've heard. The Ovenel Park. Every time you drive onto Camano, you see it on the left-hand side. I heard that it hit some kind of stops along the way. Is it still moving forward?
That's one of the projects where I know that's going to be like probably a 5-10 year project. I don't know as far as if we've hit any roadblocks. I know there's we have to follow the guidelines of what we're allowed to develop on that property.
Okay.
But we're so early in that stage on that project. I think it's more of let's see what we can do with Church Creek, Hamilton, and Heritage Park.
Yeah.
Because Heritage is also utilized a lot, and
Yeah.
I went there for the first time last year, and I was like, wow, we have these great fields. People are always walking their dogs here. So I think we have two great existing parks, and I think they're just going to expand further.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome. So what are, we're finally coming out of this with COVID and everything. So what are some of the big events that you guys have planned over the next years or, coming up?
Yeah. So I want to say we're kind of post-COVID now.
Yes.
So we do see a lot more organizations wanting to host special events. So the beginning of this year, we had Glass Quest, obviously,
Yeah.
one of the biggest events here. Next month, or actually this month, this Saturday, we have the Pickers Market on 271st in downtown. This
Okay.
is a first-time event that one of the local businesses are hosting. So it's going to be a family-friendly event with vendors coming out. Next month, we have our Twin City Idlers Car Show is coming back in June.
Nice.
We also have the fair coming back. So the Rotary is hosting their community parade again.
Okay.
And then as far as city events, we are planning for National Night Out. We are planning for Touch a Truck.
Okay.
And we are planning for movies in the park as well. That's a little early access for movies in the park.
Okay.
So we'll be hosting some of those events as well. But I think people are getting a little bit more comfortable with coming out, and people are getting more vaccinated and things like that. So I see a lot more events coming back and more new events wanting to participate as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. And how is the city hoping to or planning to work with the two local chambers in the area?
Yeah, so I'm a member of both of the chambers, the Stanwood and the Camano Chamber. I don't think it's like necessarily a plan per se, but it's like I mentioned, it's maintaining those relationships. So I actively reach out to Jessica at the Camano Chamber. I actively reach out to Cassie at the Stanwood Chamber.
Yeah.
Seeing where can we collaborate? Do you guys need assistance? Do you guys need a connection with the business? Do the businesses that are part of your membership, are they looking for support from the city in a specific aspect?
Yeah.
So it's really checking in with these groups. I feel like some communities, they just expect the chambers to kind of run and operate on their own.
Yeah.
But I think it's we all have the same goal to support our business community.
Yeah.
So it's making sure we don't need to do the same work twice. Essentially,
Right.
It's how can the city use their resources to help, and how can the chamber assist as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Well, I like to end every podcast with some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So the first one is, what purchase of $100 or less have you enjoyed the most in the last 3 months?
So it's going to kind of sound boring, but since I'm a relatively new homeowner here, I've been kind of fixing up the house, getting more furniture added. I bought a electric fireplace. We don't have a fireplace in the home, but
Yep.
it didn't match the rest of my furniture.
Yep.
It was like a different color. So I've never done this before. I've never furbished furniture, but I bought, primer, I bought paint, I got a sander, and I just went to it, and it actually turned out really nice.
Nice.
It matches with the rest of my living room now. So that was probably one of my most recent purchases I've been very happy with. Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Who is the most influential person outside of your family in your life?
Outside of my family, at least in my career and in my professional life, I would probably say Tim Johnson. He was the economic development director for the city of Federal Way.
Okay.
I would not be here doing what I do if it wasn't for him.
Yeah.
And I still connect with him to say, hey, I know you're doing much bigger projects than I am, but can you take a look at this and see what you think? And he's had over 30, 40 years of experience in economic development. So
Nice.
he's a great resource that I have, and I always look up to him for all my professional needs. So
Very
yeah.
cool. All right. This is a fill in the blank question. I know this is weird, but I've always wanted to blank.
I don't know if it's weird, but I've always wanted to learn how to drive stick.
Okay.
So I've tried and I failed. My husband actually has a manual car, and he's had it for 10 years now probably, and I still don't know how to drive it. So we have 2 cars, but if anything happens when he's driving the other car, I always say I need to learn, otherwise I'm just never going to be able to drive. So I eventually want to learn how to drive stick one day.
All right. Well, you better get out there and do that.
Yeah.
All right. Who is an interesting or fascinating person in this community, or just in general, that I should interview next?
I'll probably pick somebody from City Hall. I would probably pick either my director, Patricia Love. She's been with the city for several years now, and she's also a local. She lives on Camano as well. I think she has a lot of experience and knowledge, and I think she'd be someone great to interview. Another person I think would be great would be our city administrator, Sean Smith. He became our city administrator earlier this year, I believe, and I think he has a lot of experience as well. He's been with the city for several years as well. And he's coming from an engineer perspective. So I think he might have some interesting things to kind of share about the city.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. And lastly, what piece of advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
I'm still relatively young, so maybe just go a few years back. But it might sound a little cliche, but I think I wouldn't change anything I've done so far. Ultimately, everything that I did got me to where I am in my life right now.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be living in Stanwood and Camano, but all of my actions led me to this point. So to any young person, just keep working hard, keep yourself busy, and you may find your passion in something that you never thought would be. I never thought I'd be in economic development, but here I am and I'm loving it.
Yeah.
So I think, and also reach out to other people that have more experience than you, and they'll be able to help you grow and learn as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, Brandon.
All right. And Islanders, I will talk to you on the next one. Well, a big thank you to Sarah Cho for joining me on the podcast today, and thank you for listening. If you haven't already, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps us be found by other islanders like yourself. And for more information on this episode, you can go to camanocommons.com/podcast. That's camanocommons.com/podcast. Thanks for listening and see you next time.